One of those lawmakers, Tennessee Senator, member of the Senate Foreign Affairs, Banking, and Appropriations Committees, Bill Hagerty, is here. Senator, good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. What are you expecting from this trip, and what is a must raise for Anthony Blinken in your view?
Well, I certainly wish Secretary Blinken the best. He's got some major challenges ahead of him, though. What I hope he'll be talking about is China's military aggression, the fact that they have been sending warplanes into Taiwan's airspace. They've been supporting Russia in its war on Ukraine. They've been violating sanctions there. They continue to ramp up their aggressive posture everywhere they possibly can. From an economic standpoint, their economic aggression continues. They're subsidizing their companies. They're stealing intellectual property. All of this needs to be brought up. But what I'm hearing is that they're going to be talking about climate change. They're going to be talking about cooperation on world health. Look, China's got the worst track record of anyone on world health. You think about the lack of transparency on the origins of the coronavirus that emanated from Wuhan. You think about what they're doing every day in terms of pumping fentanyl into America, in through Mexico, partnering with these Mexican cartels to kill American people. It's laughable when you think about what their contributions might be to that. And if you think about the discussion on climate, you've got the United States that reenters the Paris Climate Accord, even though the major signatories have done nothing to meet their obligations. We got nothing for that, except we handed over another great opportunity to China, who continues to build more coal-fired plants, who continues to become the largest polluter in the world, and we make ourselves disadvantaged. We take a war on our own domestic energy production, disadvantaging ourselves and handing the advantage over to China that's trying to seek control over rare earth minerals and corner the market on electric batteries. This is ridiculous.
That's absolutely stunning and extraordinary. I find it outrageous that now we are 3 years away from the beginning of COVID, and now we are having our first hearing on the origins of COVID-19 because the Republicans are in charge in the House. Not one hearing. Nobody was curious as far as how this thing started. We're with Sam Waxel this morning. Sam, what do you think about what went on in Wuhan? And by the way, is Pfizer mutating COVID? The Project Veritas report, they interviewed the director of research, and he said that they are doing gain of function or mutating COVID so that they could make more vaccines. Now, Pfizer came out and said that's not true. We are not doing gain of function research. But what can you tell us?
Well, look, I do believe that there was a laboratory accident in Wuhan, and I do believe that that laboratory accident led to a worldwide pandemic, and we can talk about that at length. I do not believe that Pfizer's doing anything to endanger the world in that way. And Pfizer's been working, and Pfizer has done, Albert Bourla has done an unbelievable job at making a vaccine available with their relationship with BioNTech quickly to the American public and to the world, and they've done a great job. So I do not believe that Pfizer's doing anything to endanger the world.
Senator, you want to weigh in here?
I would just say that with respect to the Chinese Communist Party, they've done nothing to keep the world safe. You remember what happened within China once the virus got loose. They prohibited any domestic traffic from Wuhan on air travel, but they allowed international air travel to continue. This is something that we need to make front and center and deal with this. I think Anthony Blinken needs to have this on the agenda. I certainly hope he will.
Well, in fact, we had planes coming in with people infected from China to the West Coast, while we had planes coming in from Italy to the East Coast with people who had been infected with COVID that began in China.
Yeah, and
so I think we absolutely had a worldwide pandemic because it wasn't done. We didn't respond quickly enough. The world didn't respond quickly enough. And it was a disaster.
Liz, you want to jump in?
Well, Senator, it seems to me it was not that long ago that the United States was exacting from China certain changes in their behavior because we had some leverage. We have trade. Why is that idea completely off the table? And by the way, what is our trade policy right now with China? Is there any conversation about that at all?
Well, John Ratcliffe would say China's strategy is the following: rob, replicate, replace.
Yeah, and that's what they do.
I can't disagree with John at all. You're exactly right. We were putting a severe degree of pressure on China, using trade as a major tool. If you think about the trade deficit with the United States, China has made out like a bandit over years. They've used that gap to fund a massive buildup in their military. We were pushing back on this in the previous administration. We need to continue that process right now. The trade tools are still there, but we need to enforce them. And when Secretary Blinken shows up in China, we need to be speaking from a position of strength.
Senator, I want to get your take on the debt limit. We are getting breaking news right now because the economy is showing signs of slowdown. But, Senator, stay with us. I want to get your take on what you're going to do when the debt limit is busted. It already has been. Now we're in extraordinary moves. But first, Cheryl Casoni, on the labor cost, the unit labor cost and jobless claims out right now.
Yeah, well, I'll start with claims because we came in weaker than the expectation, 183,000 claims, which kind of flies in the face of all these layoff announcements that we've been getting. The estimate was 200,000. We came in at 183. As far as continuing claims, those dropped as well, 1.655 million. The estimate was 1.677 million. Productivity jumped in the fourth quarter, by the way, more than expected. We were looking for 2.4. We got a 3% jump on productivity for the fourth quarter. Labor costs fell, which is interesting. That's an inflation story, 1.1%, Maria. The expectation was 1.6%. Of course, we get the big January jobs report out tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m.
Market's coming back on these numbers, Cheryl, as we continue to see inflation cooling down. Dow Industrial's way off of the lows, now down just 12 points. About to go positive, it looks to me. Real quick on the economic data, Mark Tepper.
Do you really think the Fed's going to pivot with initial claims coming in at 183,000? Absolutely not. But the market seems to believe that, because look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ up 1.74% already in the pre-market. It seems like the market wants to believe a pivot's coming. And I say no chance with these jobless claims numbers
but
at all.
But I also think the market's saying the consumer is going to continue in pretty good shape. And this is the essential story of the soft landing. I mean, you can't have a soft landing if unemployment goes crazy.
Final word
right?
from Senator. Look, we got the debt ceiling debate. Some of your colleagues are saying they are not going to vote to increase the debt ceiling. No way, no how until we see structural reforms in spending. What are you going to do?
I'm supportive of that. What we're seeing from the Democrats is a false choice. Either you put the full faith and credit of the United States, Social Security and Medicare on the block, or give them a blank check. That's just not the case. We can protect debt payments on our debt. We can protect interest payments, on our debt. We can protect Social Security and Medicare and get right at some of the major wasteful spending that's taking place. You think our Fed's got a tough choice now? You know, we've had so much inflationary spending dumped in on a wholly partisan basis just over the past 2 years. You know, we've got the choice of accommodating all this public spending and putting the private sector economy into recession. The Democrats have caused this. We can fix it.
I assume you're not willing to get the U.S. to default on its debt.
No, and we don't have to. That's a false choice.
Senator, it's good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bill
Good to be
Hagerty
with
joining
you,
us in D.C. We'll be right back.